Despite having a main role, historically, horror has had a misogynistic attitude towards women, where filmmakers take pleasure in torturing women for a longer amount of time and at a closer distance than men. A subgenre that explores women's punishment to the fullest is slasher. The slasher film typically involves a serial killer who murders a series of teenagers or young adults in an apparent random way. These films usually begin with the murder of a woman or a young girl and end up with a lone female survivor, called the final girl, who manages to finish the killer off, either by her own skills or because she's saved by someone else, like a man or a police officer. According to Professor Carol J. Clover, the final girl gets saved by her virginal and pure attitude. She does not consume drugs nor have sexual relationships, unlike her murdered friends.
That's why she always outsmarted the killer in the big chase scene at the end. Only virgins can do that. Don't you know the rules?
She is rewarded for having an attitude bound to a specific ideology. Slasher films have a strong sexist connotation, despite the spotlight on female protagonists. The ending in slashers is a social punishment towards women. If one of the female characters has some sinful aspect, she dies. Slasher films as we know them are now extinct, and a new horror renaissance has appeared. In the words of Professor Beth Younger, horror has veered away from slashers and torture porn to more substantive, nuanced films that comment on social issues and possess an aesthetic vision. So, why has horror evolved in this way? How are women represented nowadays? We will take a deep look at both Black Christmas and The Invisible Man to see how the role of women has changed over the course of 50 years. It is interesting to see how both of these films appeared at a time of great social progress, and how each one of them has been influenced by it in opposite ways. In the early 1970s, at the peak of the second wave of feminism, more and more women started attending college, catching up with men. In fact, by the 1980s, female attendance had completely surpassed male attendance in the US. With this, a new social anxiety arose from a danger that women gained too much power once they started educating themselves. Black Christmas represents perfectly this resistant and conservative idea, as one by one, the members of a sorority house get killed by a serial killer. 50 years later, the Me Too movement and a new wave of feminism have changed everything. It is certain that after the Time's Up campaign, there has been a noticeable demand on women filmmakers. Many actresses who happen to have their own production company started to focus their projects on films made by and for women. Now that women get to produce, horror has followed this evolution of gender representation. Kylie Dufresne, producer of The Invisible Man, has created a horror film that supports the female victim, instead of finding pleasure in punishing and torturing them. So, let's see how this difference in the historical context has influenced some of the main themes in horror movies, and especially in our case studies. In both movies, women deal with undesired pregnancy. In a time where abortion had just been legalized in the United States, Black Christmas does not allow our protagonist Jess to abort. She kills her boyfriend, who refused to let her have an abortion, and who seemed to be the killer. But Jess is actually murdered by the real killer at the end of the film. So, the movie emphasizes the innocence of Jess's boyfriend, like saying, he's not a bad guy, he's against killing anybody.
You selfish bitch. You're talking about killing our babies though you were having a wart removed.
The film puts abortion and murder at the same level. However, in The Invisible Man, Cecilia gets to have autonomy. By killing her abuser, she gets to choose what she wants to do. This power of choice showcases the support of the new wave of feminism. In Black Christmas, abuse is in a way justified. Billy kills these women because of their sinful behavior, and we are forced to emphasize with him through constant POV shots. In The Invisible Man, while there is a clear criticism on gender-based violence, there is also a more subtle critique of the microaggressions that women face.
So any reason you worked in Paris in particular? Is that where all the beautiful women in the world have to go as a rule?
especially victims of abuse who have a hard time getting men to believe them.
I swear.
Hey, see. Adrian will haunt you if you let him. Don't let him.
In a way, The Invisible Man is a movie about a woman fighting her trauma alone, when she realizes no one's going to believe nor help her. It empowers and changes the way women are represented in horror, not as helpless individuals, but as characters that don't need men to fight their battles. So, coming back to our first question, how has the new wave of feminism affected the genre? From the examples in this video, we can conclude that the horror genre has evolved from the opposition to feminist movements, like in Black Christmas, to the support of these, in movies such as The Invisible Man. Thanks for watching, and goodbye!
Psycho killer.